friends, to another episode of Thoughts on the Edge. Again, my name is CJ Baldelamar, and I'm with my friend and co-host, Reinaldo Torres. And today we're going to get a little bit more personal. So usually we've been doing podcasts on politics. I know we're probably all kind of tired talking about politics, so we're moving away from that, going to get a little bit more personal this time and talk about what we think about relationships. I think that's a topic that is universal and we can talk about it at any time, right? So that's what we're going with this time. Let's talk
Yeah.
about relationships.
Okay, I'm ready.
With our leadoff batter, as always.
Happy February, everybody. 1st of February. Wow, we made it through January. How about that? I hope everyone out there, your day's going well. So, like we said, let's talk about relationships and some of our feelings. So, I guess kind of to lead off. Relationships to me, they've always been something that's kind of been like up in the air. It to say the least, guys. To all of you guys listening out there, I mean, I grew up. This is just how I grew up. That was never really, having friends wasn't something I grew up with. I didn't have that real luxury of having friends. Because I was having a disability, having and with my right side, I was the object of ridicule a lot. So people, they were just they were just mean at that time and place. So I was always that person that was pretty much to myself. I just, I didn't venture out to really trust anybody or really get to know anybody. And, my head was always in a book. I was pretty much the loner kind of to myself. And a lot of that really carried over into my adult life. I didn't really have best friends until I hit high school and college. Like I said, I didn't venture out. So, at 18, 19, even 20, 21 years old, when, I saw my best friends getting in relationships, it wasn't something that I automatically just thought, oh yeah, I'm going to try this. Pump your brakes. I'm not there. And a lot of it, and still to this day, it's just carried over. I'm not going to say that there aren't great people out there, because I do believe that there's somebody for everybody. But for me, I have to say, I love the solitude. I love the freedom of the single life that it affords you. Um, yeah, it's just that level of freedom you have, and you don't necessarily have to check in with anyone whenever you feel like doing something, or you don't feel like doing something. Yeah, I just love
That,
the single life.
yeah, I think that's great. What was that quote that you like mentioning from Keanu Reeves?
Well, I heard that on a Facebook post where he said that a friend of his actually said, I feel sorry for single people. And Keanu Reeves is, I'm going to paraphrase here. He said, well, I don't feel bad at all. I take myself out to eat. I buy myself clothes. I entertain myself. Once you learn how to take care of yourself, company becomes an option, almost like a luxury. It's not something that you necessarily need to have. Um, but if you do have, friends are always nice, and friends are awesome. And, if you do find that person that you're interested in having a relationship with, if you're someone like me that loves a single life, just take it slow, I would say. And and really decide if that's something you want.
Yeah, it's funny. So friends ask me all the time, right? And it's funny because in a way I like to be mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't open up to people unless it's somebody really close to me or
Yeah.
family or even family. Sometimes I kind of keep things
Mm-hmm.
from them, right? Occult things from them. But I would say solitude is definitely, for me, it's wonderful. I mean, this is the longest I've been single
Mm-hmm.
since I've been, 16. Yeah. So it's been a wonderful feeling
Mm-hmm.
to focus on the things that I want to focus on. And plus doing a doctoral program is very challenging with in terms of time. So it wouldn't be fair necessarily, right? If I had a partner who did not
Right.
share, my expectations or who wasn't in my field, or even not even in my field, just in doing doctoral work, or keeping busy all the time, right? Because relationships do demand time.
Yep. And
They demand presence.
yeah.
And unless, if you can't give those two things, if you can't give someone time, and if you
Mhm.
can give someone your presence, right? Because you can be with someone,
Yeah.
but not necessarily be there.
Yeah.
So it's important to just be present to the person. And to me, it's important to be present to yourself first and foremost. As you said, right? You can't date someone in a
Yeah.
healthy relationship if you can't even spend time on you, because otherwise it
Yeah.
becomes it becomes
Hectic,
relationship
chaotic.
a relationship where you just, you don't want to be lonely. That's the only reason you're in it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think about my godfather a lot. He was he was married and his wife passed away in 2004, and after that he really didn't for a good couple years, when you've been married almost 30 some years, you're not exactly, when that person passes away, you're not exactly going to be out there like, oh, I'm available. You're not exactly going to present yourself as a billboard or anything like that. And a couple years later, it took him a couple years to, start trusting and testing the waters again. And he finally found this amazing woman, and they've just been casual friends for for years. And a lot of it is, hey, they go to parties, they go to social functions, and they're casual. But at the end of the day, you go your way, I go my way. I don't need you for financial support, you don't need me for financial support. When we come together, we have a great time, and that is that. Ever since I met her and I saw him do that, I was like, you know what, that's not a bad idea for somebody like me. When you love that solitude and you love that freedom, it just, again, I know that I'm repeating myself, but it's, there's nothing else like it. I think in your case too, because I get asked all the time, well, there's this question of, well, why don't you want a relationship? I never said I didn't, but I know, coming from me, I know what I want and what I don't want to deal with. And I remember listening to Shonda Rhimes, an interview that she did with Oprah Winfrey, where they talked about, she had this huge epiphany about marriage. And one of the things that she said was, a large part of her life is geared toward writing and writing television shows and movies. And one of the things that she said was that being a mother, being a writer, being a business person, she could not have the life that she built for herself. She couldn't see herself giving everything its due diligence. Like, there's a big part of her life that's toward writing,
Well,
another part of her life that's toward her children. And now you're talking about, oh my God, I have to give another part of myself to another human being. She's like, I love boyfriends, I love dating. I do not want a husband in my house.
well, and then this is where we get into the subject of scripts, right? And
Mm-hmm.
narratives that we follow.
Yeah.
For example, you're supposed to get married by a certain age, right? For women, it's like
Mm-hmm.
to have children by a certain age. You're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to do all this by a certain age. And then what happens is, in trying to fit these scripts, which by the way are relatively new. I mean, marriage as we understand it and relationships as we understand it,
Yeah.
they're framed by capitalism. There's no other way to explain it. I mean, marriage is done for two reasons, and two reasons principally, right? It's number one, for procreation,
Mm-hmm.
right? People want kids, they want to keep
Mm-hmm.
expanding themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, to protect property, private property, right? Through the passing on of
Asset.
actual physical property or money, right?
Right.
So it's that's what marriage is,
Mm-hmm.
and with this script of you need to do it by a certain age,
There's all this pressure. There's all this pressure, I think, like,
right?
and when you finally say to yourself, nah, I don't want to deal with that, it's almost like, if you don't want it, there's something fundamentally wrong with your brain if you don't want marriage by a certain age, if you don't want children by a certain age. And I'm like, who died and where's this commandment that says, oh my God, if you're not married by 28 and you don't have 2 kids, where is this narrative that we're on, that we have to do all of this by a certain age, and if we don't, that there's something fundamentally wrong with us? Like, somebody point me in the direction, because apparently I missed that class.
It's all scripted. There is no commandment, right? And what I see is people rushing into relationships.
Yeah.
Because they need to fit the script, and then what happens is they're miserable.
Yeah, just because you're in a relationship doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be happy. And I see people that, and this is another thing that I find too, they rush into these relationships. You wanted that girl so bad, she was so beautiful, you made her your girlfriend, you made her your wife. Are you happy? You wanted that guy so bad, he was so good looking, but are you happy? You know what I'm saying? So I gotta tell you, rushing in it, like, when people ask me that question now, I politely turn them off. Like, I politely just say, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that.
And another thing that to me is hilarious, when I hear friends saying, oh, I go on YouTube to get relationship advice from all these gurus now, dating gurus, right? And I'm thinking to myself, every relationship, first of all, is unique.
Right.
Because there's a dynamic between the people. Not, I mean, yes, of course, there are underlying similarities, why attraction happens and who we're attracted to, and problems within relationships.
Right.
But if you go, for example, I had a friend tell me, well, I just broke up with someone and I went online and I found this guy telling me no contact, a 30-day no contact rule, and all this. And I'm thinking to myself, that depends, because if the other person was someone who's not used to games, they know that you're not trying to contact them on purpose.
Right.
But sometimes what they do want is to talk to each other to figure out what went wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe try to salvage the relationship, maybe not.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, right? How people go to YouTube to try to learn how to manage their own relationships. And I think
just go to any platform.
Because, as you said, they don't know how to spend time with themselves. They don't know how to explore themselves.
They don't know how to spend time alone. Yeah, they don't know how to spend time alone. It's this almost this mindset of, I've got to be with a piece of someone. I can't be all by myself. I've got to be with this piece of someone. And if I'm not with this piece of someone, then society is not going to accept me. Me personally, and God, if you're listening, I'm sorry for this. I don't give a crap about what society says, because if you allow society to just, if you allow society to control your every thinking, you're never going to be, you're never going to be happy, because society's narratives and their timelines, they constantly change from day to day.
Exactly. And these are the scripts that I'm talking about.
Yeah, it just changes from day to day. Yesterday you needed this, today you needed this, and a week from now that's going to change. And it's just so crazy how wired people are.
And it's interesting because you mentioned that relationship earlier, and the philosopher Sartre, the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, and Simone de Beauvoir, right, his best friend, they had a relationship. He and she, they were very close,
right?
But they never labeled it, number one, a relationship, and they never labeled each other girlfriend, boyfriend, partner. They just continued living their lives, right? And then they would get together for companionship. They would get together to discuss philosophy and probably discuss more things, but they never labeled it, because it would go against their existentialist philosophy, which is basically what you said. We're constantly evolving and changing.
Yeah.
So to be unrealistic and demand that both persons stay the same.
Yeah, that's boring.
40, even 2 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
Right, is where I think people run into conflict. And it's no coincidence that, the divorce rates are what, 65% and over in our country.
It's like, I see, my grandparents and the way that they did it. You're talking about a couple that's coming up on 58 years.
Yeah.
back, you know, they got married in the 1970s when the caliber and the character of women and men were totally different to than what they are now. Again, I'm not saying that there aren't some good men and good women out here, but the narrative, the narrative, the definition has completely changed. Um, and some men and some women, they just don't want to deal with those, you know, the games that some people play. A lot of them will say, look, if I have to go, they experience that one, or they learn from someone else's relationship, and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to build up this wall and protect myself from all of this. Um, and I'm not going to deal with it because a lot of people, it only takes them one time to get their heart broken or get their emotions played with, and they're done.
Yeah.
And it's like, you always have to watch out for those type of people, the ones that they say, well, they were quiet, they were reserved, you know, I don't really think they're going to do anything. Those are the ones that you see on these true crime shows, Snap and First 48, where they're just like, yeah, but I thought you said he was non-violent. I thought you said she was not capable of. Oh, you thought emotions, playing with their emotions and playing games was a form of entertainment. Nah, not gonna work that way. You know, so I said all that to say this, like, I see why certain people don't want to, they just don't bother with it. I think the older I get, the more I'm becoming one of those people. If I do decide to get in a relationship, that person has to be very, very special to go from friend to go from the friend zone to relationship zone. It's
Well, I think that's a great way to approach it, right? It's and again, not to say that there's a right way to do this, a wrong way to do this, right?
right,
If
right.
someone is pursuing someone, hey, more power to you.
Mhm.
Good luck. But I think we're on the same page here when it comes to relationships. I think they are going to happen
Yeah,
when we least expect it. That's always been my philosophy. And at least if I look back at my relationships
yeah,
through the years, I can say that they were all very unexpected. They just happened. I've never been on a dating app.
me
I've never
neither.
been on dating websites. I've never done any of that. I
Cheers.
prefer there you go, right? It's like cheers to that, right? But again, if you found love on these dating apps or
Right?
relationships
Which
or
is totally possible.
hey, good for you. We're not here to say that there's one right way because there isn't, right?
Yeah,
That
there's
depends
no
on you.
guys and gals out there listening to Thoughts on the Edge. There's no cookie cutter strategy to finding love, to finding relationship, to finding companionship. But certain people go with what they know. I'm the type of person, I don't want to have a relationship behind a computer. I'm the type of person, okay, can we go meet for coffee? I need to see you face to face. I like to have that one-on-one interaction. You know, of course, time of COVID have somewhat changed that narrative, but
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that because I've heard friends express anxiety at this, right? At the fact that they haven't been able to go out
mhm,
and meet people,
right.
it's become that much harder. And so some of them are resorting to dating apps. Friends that vowed to me never to be on a dating app
Mhm.
have put up their first Hinge profile, and now that's how they're searching for love,
Love.
which
Mhm.
is fine. But I think there is again this narrative of time pressing you, right? That just makes people kind of settle for the first
Yeah.
thing that comes
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
And I think
I've
there's
actually,
something to be said about saying this is not the right person.
mhm.
We might have had a good time a couple times going out, hanging out, but when it comes to an actual relationship, right, the commitment that you're making to be in someone's life,
For like hours and days and weeks and
hours and days, right now to me, it just seems very. It gives me a lot of anxiety to think about that.
yeah, it gives me a lot of anxiety too. I think when I think about it and I ponder with the prospect of it, I'm always like, oh my God, like I actually like that. Just picturing myself in that moment, it's like I almost have to put on a different character. Okay, my name is not Ronaldo. It's one of my characters in my scripts to to be, because it really makes you sit back and think, do I really want this or do, because a lot of people don't realize when you talk about the term relationship, do you actually know what you're getting yourself into?
Right.
This is not something that you say, you know what, I'm going to put you back in the fridge for 10 minutes and, I'll see you later. Or it's something that you just throw under your bed and come back to it when you feel like it. When you talk about the term relationship, that's commitment. That is putting your feelings and emotions on display. That's, everything is out in the open.
And
There is.
I think most vital is finding someone who kind of carries a similar schedule or routine to you.
Yeah.
So for me, it's impractical right now to meet someone who is not, for example, working or studying in an intensive program, just because there will be
There
disparity
will be conflict because
of time available,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, if I were to welcome a relationship right now, it would be someone who is busy.
Yeah.
Someone who says, "Hey,"
time.
it's like someone who says, "Hey, like, we can only talk for 10 minutes tonight because I'm sleepy, I'm tired, and maybe we'll see each other on Saturday." I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like our friendship, if you really think about it. I'll message you and I may not hear from you for a couple days, and I have to remind myself, okay, he's a doctoral student. I'm busy too, but he's another level of of chaotic, But I understand the narrative. As someone who has multiple degrees, I've been there where I have to put myself in a hole for a couple of days and not talk to anybody.
Right.
So I understand that narrative of, hey, look, I can only talk for 10 minutes, or shoot me a text and I'll try to get back to it as soon as possible. Like right now, my schedule can go from having nothing to do to having everything to do. Like before we recorded, my dad called me, hey, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. So someone that doesn't understand that,
right,
or is not, someone that doesn't understand that, or someone that is only focused on one thing at a time, they won't understand or comprehend.
Right.
He's busy.
And again, not saying, a disclaimer here, right? Not saying that this is the right way to do things or the only way.
Exactly.
It's just, it's my preference and it's your preference. It's where we're at in our lives at this moment. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. That there is no script that just speaks to one's lifetime across the entire lifetime, right? It's impossible.
Guys and gals, all of you out there listening, like we said, there is no cookie cutter strategy, because life can change from one day to the next.
Exactly.
This is just where we're at in our life right now. Hey, if you stick with us a year from now, things may change.
Right.
As I have a friend who says, listen, I'm going to be that friend that shows up to the parties with a plant named Bob. And she is dead serious about this. I think actually she has started growing Bob and Fern on top of her, again, working on her bachelor's degree. And she has other things going on professionally. So she would totally understand this narrative of, exactly, if I get with someone, it's got to be someone that's on my level, that understands I am busy. I am not just sitting here.
Right.
But even, trying to avoid you.
Even, let's say, even if it doesn't have to be that you're busy all the time, but because it takes a lot of mental capacity and energy, right, to do things. So sometimes you just do want to sit and not do anything.
Yeah, right? Sometimes that feels good. That is, that is the highlight sometimes of my night. A Thursday night for me is watching reruns of First 48, watching reruns of Dateline. It feels good to literally do nothing.
Exactly. And also, somebody who is in your life and really likes you for who you are will understand that as well, right? That it's not just because you're busy that you can't talk. Sometimes you need a mental break and be by yourself doing absolutely nothing. And that's also as important.
Right.
So I think, the message is, if there is one, is you need to find, or we don't actually need to find. Let me backtrack. We don't need to do anything.
Right.
Right. If something happens, it's meant to be, it will happen.
To be, yeah.
And the less forced it feels, the more natural it feels, I think the more successful, right, in the long term, that relationship will be. I don't know if you have any Closing thoughts, because we're almost at our time.
Closing thoughts, I would say you hit the nail right on the head. You know, take time to discover self. Take time to discover yourself. If there's one thing I wish someone had told me 10 years ago when I started undergrad, is that you don't have to have all of the answers today. And if you don't know how you're going to show up in the world, if you don't know what path you're going to go down, if you don't know what your type of man or woman is, take time to discover that, because once you know, you're able to show up in the world differently.
Exactly.
And the right person, the right people that are meant to be in your life, they will come in your life and they will stay.
Right.
You know, don't ever feel like you have to force someone to stay in your life, because you don't. Take time to discover yourself and who you are. It's going to make things much easier for you in the long run.
I think that's beautiful advice, and specifically where you said, when you know, right? You have to know yourself,
Yes.
and that's hard because again, who we are changes.
Yeah.
So it's never finalized. I hate when I hear people say, "Oh, I went to a retreat this weekend," or "I did this meditation thing, and now I know who I am."
Yeah.
No, it's always a process, right?
Listen,
We're never gonna know. We are mysteries to others, and we are ultimately mysteries to even ourselves.
I'm constantly evolving from day to day. If you guys could get a glimpse into my brain, the characters that I write in my scripts and my books, they change from day to day. They are like, I subscribe to that question Oprah Winfrey asked Shonda Rhimes when she was writing Scandal. Where do all these characters, do they come to bed with you? Do they live in your living room? Honestly, to CJ's point, we are mysteries, and we are mysteries to ourselves, and we are ever evolving. So if someone comes out there and tells you, if you meet this person, oh yeah, I know who I am. You might have an idea
Exactly.
of who you are at that moment.
Exactly.
But growth requires you to elevate every single day. Who you are, the things that you wanted 5 years ago, they're essentially a distant relative that you only see at a funeral every 5 years.
That's a good way to put it.
You're evolving. It's called growth. Yeah. Get comfortable with
also,
that.
I think it's okay to mention that, yes, as we're evolving, sometimes we do, devolve, so to speak. And that's okay. That's part of the tug and pull, right? The dance
of growth.
Of growth, the dance of constant self-reflection, self-discovery. Yeah. And ultimately, yes, would it be beautiful to share that with someone? Absolutely. But I think in order to vibe, right, to find that energy in someone else,
yeah,
you need to give off that energy in a way that does not come across as forced, in a way that doesn't come across as disingenuous.
Yeah.
It needs to be natural. And people will pick up on that vibe, right? And hopefully the right people who don't want to take advantage, because that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But it'll hopefully be somebody who matches your energy.
Yeah.
And helps in that process, right? Of self-growth and self-discovery.
Yep. Yep. So like I said, just take your time, pace yourself, and let things happen. Enjoy the spontaneity. Enjoy the mystery. Enjoy the journey of discovery. I could tell you guys so much about the last 10 years, well, not the last 10 years, but especially the last 3 years, and, how I've grown so much, and how I'm not labeling, yep, this is the end. Because I know that there's a lot more knowledge out there and a lot more growth that I have to do as a person. So just because you have one, period of growth, don't cut it off there, because you're constantly going to grow. Every day is another day where you're constantly changing, you're constantly evolving.
And I think that would be a great topic for another podcast as well, which is, what does it mean, right, to be on this journey that does not necessarily have an end?
Yeah.
Right. So how does that change it from the mentality of there's a journey with a final destination, which we know is impossible, because as long as we're breathing and thinking, we're constantly going to be changing and going down different paths. Yeah. Sometimes revisiting old roads, right? But most of the time making new paths.
Yeah, derailing. And that's why, that's why roads have detours, and but a lot of people think it's a straight and narrow path.
Right.
A relationship or a business or whatever, it's a straight and narrow path. No, it's
Right.
you think it's like this. It's more of like up, down, curve, loop, crack in the road.
Well, exactly, Reinaldo, and it has to do with what we're saying, right? If these are scripts that people are buying into, nothing wrong with having scripts. We I think it is necessary from time to time to have guideposts and to have narratives.
Right.
The problem is when we know, number one, that they are scripts and that they are not, as you said, commandments from some divine source.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, if we force ourselves into it like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit,
Yeah.
then the end result is going to be edges that are way too jagged and will not fit anywhere else. So I think it's necessary, as you said, to step back from these scripts, these narratives, find your own scripts, your own narratives, which sometimes means going against, right, the dominant scripts of getting married, of having children, of doing this, of doing that, just to gain acceptance. I think that's the takeaway, right? That we can
The pressure of, hey, when are you going to do this? When are you going to do this? You need to be, tune it out is what is what I like to say. So those are my ending thoughts.
all right, friends. Well, we hope you enjoyed this one a little bit more than the political ones, because I know we're all tired of the politics.
Yeah.
And again, please, if you are enjoying these conversations, make sure to subscribe.
If you guys want this, let us know if you guys want us to make this into a series. Drop an email. I will link the email in the description box, and we can definitely continue this conversation because there's a lot to talk about here.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So, and again, if there are any topics that you want to bring up or you want us to bring up, make sure also to drop a note, let us know.
Yep, comment on these videos, send us an email, and we will try to get back to them as soon as we can.
All right. So with that being said, we hope you enjoyed and have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Take care. See you guys next week.
Take care.